Ethan stands before Morrison Construction's board, his career hanging by a thread. They've discovered his relationship with Dante, the foreman who awakened desires he'd buried for 23 years. Fire him, or promote him. His parents' number glows on his phone. One choice destroys everything. The other changes his world forever. Before we dive in, comment where in the world you are watching from, and don't forget to click subscribe. Ethan Clark had always been the golden boy. At 23, he'd graduated top of his architecture program at Columbia, landed a prestigious internship at Morrison Construction, and had his entire future mapped out with the precision of a blueprint. His parents were proud. His professors were impressed. His girlfriend of 2 years thought they'd be engaged by Christmas. But Ethan had a secret that kept him awake at night, staring at his ceiling while anxiety twisted his stomach into knots. He'd never wanted any of it. Not the girlfriend, not the carefully planned future, not the life everyone expected him to live. Because Ethan Clark, golden boy and architectural prodigy, had spent his entire adult life pretending he wasn't attracted to men. He'd known since he was 15, since he'd watched his high school gym teacher demonstrate proper form and felt his entire body respond in ways it never had to any girl. He'd pushed it down, buried it under achievement and ambition, and the relentless pursuit of perfection. He'd dated women because that's what was expected. He'd never gone further than kissing because he'd convinced everyone, including himself, that he was just traditional, that he wanted to wait for the right person. The truth was simpler and more terrifying. Ethan was a 23-year-old virgin who'd never been touched by anyone because he'd never wanted to be touched by the people he was supposed to want. And now, standing on this construction site in the sweltering July heat, watching Dante Morrison direct his crew with effortless authority, Ethan finally understood what desire felt like. It was overwhelming. Dante Morrison was 42, though he looked ageless in the way some men do when they've spent their lives using their bodies for real work. He stood 6'7", his frame built from years of physical labor rather than gym vanity. His skin was deep brown, rich and warm, and when he moved, every muscle shifted with fluid power that made Ethan's mouth go dry. He wore the same uniform as his crew, jeans and a white t-shirt that stretched across shoulders so broad they blocked out the sun, but on Dante it looked different. It looked like barely contained strength, like a body that knew exactly what it was capable of. But it wasn't just Dante's physical presence that drew Ethan. It was the way he commanded respect without demanding it, the way his crew looked to him for guidance and trusted his decisions implicitly. It was the deep rumble of his voice when he explained something, patient and thorough, making sure everyone understood. It was the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, rare but genuine, transforming his usually serious face into something almost beautiful. Ethan had been assigned to shadow Dante as part of his internship, to learn how architectural plans translated to actual construction. That meant spending 8 hours a day in close proximity to the man who'd become the star of every fantasy Ethan had never let himself fully acknowledge until now. The first day had been torture. Dante had shaken his hand, his grip firm and warm, his palm calloused from years of work, and Ethan had felt electricity shoot straight through him. He'd stammered his introduction, his usual confidence deserting him completely, and Dante had looked at him with those dark, knowing eyes and said, "Relax, kid, I don't bite, unless you ask nicely." The crew had laughed, Ethan had turned bright red, and Dante had smiled that rare smile and gestured for him to follow. That was 3 months ago. 3 months of standing in the sun watching Dante work, watching the way his muscles flexed when he lifted heavy beams, watching sweat roll down his neck and disappear beneath his collar. 3 months of listening to that deep voice explain load-bearing walls and foundation integrity, while Ethan struggled to focus on anything except the way Dante's lips moved when he talked. 3 months of growing tension, of lingering looks, of moments that felt charged with something Ethan didn't have the experience to name but desperately wanted to explore. Dante had been nothing but professional. He treated Ethan with the same patient attention he gave all the new guys, explaining things clearly, correcting mistakes gently, pushing him to think critically about how structures came together. But sometimes, Ethan would catch Dante watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Sometimes their hands would brush when passing tools, and Dante's fingers would linger just a fraction too long. Sometimes Dante would stand close behind him, supposedly to point out something on the plans, and Ethan would feel the heat radiating from that massive body and wonder if he was imagining the way Dante's breath caught when Ethan leaned back slightly. Ethan told himself he was reading into things. Dante was straight, probably had a wife and kids at home, definitely wasn't interested in some scared kid who didn't even know what he wanted. But then there were moments like yesterday, when Ethan had climbed down from some scaffolding too quickly and stumbled, and Dante had caught him, those huge hands spanning Ethan's waist, steadying him with effortless strength. Their faces had been inches apart, and Ethan had seen something flash in Dante's eyes. Hunger, maybe, recognition, something that made Ethan's heart hammer against his ribs. "Careful," Dante had said, his voice rougher than usual. "You're too valuable to break." He'd set Ethan carefully on his feet and walked away, leaving Ethan trembling and confused and desperately aroused in a way he'd never experienced before. Now it was Friday afternoon. The crew had left early to beat traffic, and Ethan was alone in the construction trailer, supposedly reviewing the week's progress reports. In reality, he was trying to calm his racing pulse and figure out what to do about the feelings that were threatening to consume him. He heard boots on the trailer steps and looked up to find Dante filling the doorway, backlit by the setting sun. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Dante stepped inside and closed the door behind him. "Thought you'd have left by now," Dante said, his voice casual but his eyes intense. "It's Friday night. Don't you have somewhere to be?" "I wanted to finish the reports," Ethan said, hating how breathless he sounded. "Make sure everything was organized for Monday." Dante moved closer, each step deliberate. "You're a good worker, Ethan. Conscientious. Smart. You ask the right questions." "Thank you," Ethan managed, his throat suddenly dry. "But you're also wound tighter than any 23-year-old should be," Dante continued, stopping a few feet away. "Always so careful, so controlled. Like you're afraid if you let go even a little, everything will fall apart." Ethan's hands gripped the edge of the desk. "I don't know what you mean." "Yes, you do," Dante said gently. "I see it in the way you hold yourself, the way you flinch whenever someone gets too close, the way you look at me when you think I'm not watching." Ethan's face flamed. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. I'll request a transfer on Monday." "Why would you think you made me uncomfortable?" Dante asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. "Because Ethan couldn't finish the sentence. Couldn't voice the truth that was clawing its way up his throat. Dante took another step closer. "Because you what, Ethan? Say it." "Because I look at you, and I want things I shouldn't want," Ethan whispered, the confession torn from somewhere deep inside. "Because I'm supposed to be with my girlfriend, but all I think about is you. Because I've never wanted anyone the way I want you, and it terrifies me because I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to ruin everything." The silence that followed felt eternal. Ethan couldn't look up, couldn't bear to see disgust or pity, or worse, indifference on Dante's face. Then he felt warm fingers under his chin, tilting his head up gently but firmly. Dante's eyes were dark and intense, but not unkind. "First of all," Dante said quietly, "you need to break up with that girl. She deserves someone who actually wants her, and you deserve to stop lying to yourself." Ethan nodded, throat tight. "Second, there's nothing wrong with what you want. Nothing shameful about being attracted to men. You understand that, right?" "Intellectually," Ethan admitted. "But I grew up in a town where being different meant being wrong. My parents still think being gay is a phase people grow out of. I've spent so long hiding that I don't know how to stop." Dante's thumb stroked along Ethan's jaw, a touch so gentle it made Ethan's eyes sting. "What do you want right now? In this moment? Not what your parents want, or what you think you should want. What does Ethan want?" Ethan looked into those dark eyes and felt something break open inside him. "I want you to touch me," he whispered. "I want to know what it feels like to be wanted by someone I actually want back. I want to stop being so afraid all the time." "And you've never been with anyone?" Dante asked. "Man or woman?" Ethan shook his head, embarrassment flooding through him. "I'm 23, and I've never even been kissed properly. I know that's pathetic, but I couldn't bring myself to do it with someone when it felt like lying." "It's not pathetic," Dante said firmly. "It's honest. And brave, even if you don't feel brave right now. He stepped closer, so close Ethan could feel the heat radiating from his body, could smell sawdust and clean sweat and something uniquely Dante. I'm going to be very clear with you about a few things. Can you listen? Ethan nodded, not trusting his voice. I'm attracted to you, Dante said bluntly. Have been since day one, when you walked onto my site in your pressed khakis looking lost and eager and so damn young. I've been fighting it because you work for me and you're 23 and I'm old enough to know better. But if you're telling me this is something you want, something real, and not just curiosity or rebellion, then I need you to be very sure. Because once I touch you, once I show you what it's like, I'm not going to be able to walk away easily. Ethan's heart was racing so fast he felt dizzy. I'm sure, he said, his voice stronger than he felt. I've never been more sure of anything. You're a virgin, Dante said gently. And I'm not a small man, Ethan, in any sense. This isn't going to be easy or simple, and I need to know you understand what you're asking for. Ethan's eyes drifted down Dante's body, taking in the broad chest, the narrow waist, the powerful thighs, and lower, where even through heavy work jeans, he could see the unmistakable outline of Dante's arousal. Ethan's breath caught. He'd seen enough to know that Dante was substantially larger than average, thick and long in a way that should probably frighten him. Instead, he felt anticipation curl hot and insistent in his belly. I understand, Ethan said, meeting Dante's eyes again. And I still want this. Want you. Please, Dante. I'm tired of being afraid. I'm tired of not knowing. I trust you. Something shifted in Dante's expression. All right then, he said softly. But we do this right. Not here in a construction trailer where anyone could walk in. You deserve better than that for your first time. Where then? Ethan asked. My place, Dante said. It's not far. 15 minutes. You follow me there in your car so you can leave whenever you want. No pressure. No obligation. We take this at whatever pace you need. Ethan nodded, his whole body trembling with nerves and want. Okay. Dante's hand cupped his face, thumb brushing across his cheekbone. One more thing. The moment you want to stop, you tell me. No matter what we're doing, no matter how far we've gone. Your comfort, your safety, that's what matters. Understood? Understood, Ethan whispered. Then let's get out of here, Dante said, stepping back and offering his hand. Ethan took it, feeling the calluses against his palm, feeling the strength in those fingers as they wrapped around his. This was it. The moment everything changed, the moment he stopped pretending and started living. The drive to Dante's house felt both endless and too short. Ethan followed the pickup truck through residential streets, his hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel, his mind racing with 1,000 questions and fears and desperately intense wants. What if he was terrible at this? What if his body didn't respond the way it should? What if Dante changed his mind once they were alone? But when they pulled into the driveway of a modest craftsman-style house and Dante got out of his truck, when he came to Ethan's car door and opened it with that same patient care, when he looked at Ethan with heat and tenderness mixed together, all the fears quieted. Still sure? Dante asked. Still sure, Ethan confirmed, climbing out of the car. Dante's house was surprisingly neat, all warm wood and comfortable furniture that actually looked lived in. There were bookshelves filled with construction manuals and what looked like philosophy texts. There were photos on the walls, Dante with various people who shared his smile, his build, his easy confidence. My family, Dante said, noticing Ethan's attention. 3 brothers, 2 sisters, they're all married with kids now. I'm the stubborn bachelor who married his work instead. You never wanted a family? Ethan asked, then felt heat rise in his cheeks. Sorry. That's too personal. I wanted the right person, Dante corrected, moving to the kitchen. Never found them, or maybe I was too busy building things to notice when they walked by. He pulled 2 bottles of water from the fridge, handing one to Ethan. You need to stay hydrated. Trust me on this. The implication made Ethan's stomach flip. He drank deeply, grateful for something to do with his hands. Dante leaned against the counter, watching him with those dark, assessing eyes. We should talk first, he said. About what you want, what you're comfortable with. I know you said you're sure, But I need specifics. Ethan set down the water bottle, trying to gather his scattered thoughts. I don't really know what I want because I've never done any of this. I just know that when I look at you, I feel things I've never felt before. I want to know what it's like to be touched by someone who makes me feel this way. What way? Dante prompted gently. Alive, Ethan said simply. Like my skin is too small for everything I'm feeling, like I might crawl out of myself if I don't get closer to you. Dante's eyes darkened. That's a good start, he said, his voice rougher. Are you attracted to me just physically, or is there more? Ethan thought about the past 3 months, about watching Dante work, listening to him talk, noticing the small kindnesses he showed his crew and the thoughtful way he approached every problem. It's more, he admitted. I respect you. I like the way you think, the way you treat people. You make me feel safe, even when everything else feels terrifying. And sexually? Dante asked bluntly. What do you imagine when you think about us together? Ethan's face burned, but he forced himself to answer honestly. I imagine you touching me everywhere. I imagine what your hands would feel like on my skin. I imagine kissing you, being close to you. I imagine... He swallowed hard. I imagine what it would feel like to have you inside me. To be connected like that. Dante moved then, crossing the space between them in 2 long strides. His hands came up to frame Ethan's face, gentle despite their size and strength. Thank you for being honest, he said softly. I know that wasn't easy. Then he lowered his head and kissed him. Ethan had been kissed before. Quick pecks from girlfriends he'd felt nothing for. This was nothing like those chaste touches. Dante's lips were warm and firm, moving against Ethan's with confident skill. When Ethan gasped at the sensation, Dante took advantage, his tongue sliding into Ethan's mouth, exploring, tasting, claiming. Ethan made a sound he'd never heard himself make before, something between a whimper and a moan. His hands came up to grip Dante's shirt, holding on as the world tilted around him. Dante's kiss was consuming, overwhelming, everything Ethan had never known he needed. When Dante finally pulled back, they were both breathing hard. How was that? He asked, his thumb brushing across Ethan's kiss-swollen lips. More, Ethan gasped. Please, more. Dante smiled, warm and pleased. We'll get there. But first, I need you to understand something. You said I'm not a small man. That's putting it gently. Your first time with me could be uncomfortable, even painful if we're not careful. I need to make sure you're ready, and that takes time and patience. Can you trust me to know when you're ready? Ethan nodded frantically. I trust you. Good, Dante said. Then let's go upstairs. I'm going to show you what your body can feel like when it's touched the right way. He took Ethan's hand and led him up to a master bedroom that was as neat and comfortable as the rest of the house. The bed was large, king-sized, and Ethan felt his pulse spike looking at it. Dante turned to face him, his hands gentle on Ethan's shoulders. I'm going to undress you now, he said, slowly. And I want you to tell me how everything feels. If something doesn't feel good, you say so immediately. Understand? Yes, Ethan breathed. Dante started with Ethan's shirt, unbuttoning it with careful fingers. As each button opened, revealing more skin, Dante's hands would ghost across the exposed flesh, barely touching but making Ethan shiver anyway. When the shirt hung open, Dante pushed it off Ethan's shoulders, letting it pool on the floor. You're beautiful, Dante said, his eyes roaming over Ethan's pale, lean torso. So young and perfect. Ethan had never felt beautiful before, had always thought himself too thin, too soft, not masculine enough. But the way Dante looked at him, like he was something precious and desirable, made him feel different, made him feel wanted. Dante's hands traced patterns across Ethan's chest, thumbs brushing across his sensitive nipples and making him gasp. Responsive, Dante murmured approvingly. That's good. Your body knows what it wants, even if your mind is still catching up. He knelt then, his large frame folding down gracefully, and worked on Ethan's belt. The sight of this powerful man on his knees sent a jolt of arousal through Ethan so intense he swayed. Dante's hands steadied him, warm on his hips, as he freed Ethan from his khakis. Soon Ethan stood in just his underwear, trembling, aroused, and more vulnerable than he'd ever been in his life. Dante stood slowly, his eyes drinking in every inch of revealed skin. "Perfect," he said again. Then he pulled his own shirt over his head in one smooth motion. Ethan's breath stopped. He'd seen Dante shirtless before on particularly hot days at the site, but never this close, never with permission to stare. Dante's chest was magnificent, all smooth, dark skin stretched over defined muscle. His shoulders were impossibly broad, his arms thick with strength from years of labor. And lower, where his jeans hung on narrow hips, Ethan could see the defined lines of muscle that pointed downward to where Dante's arousal strained against denim. "Can I touch you?" Ethan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Please," Dante said. Ethan reached out with shaking hands, placing his palms against Dante's chest. The skin was warm, almost hot, and beneath his touch he could feel Dante's heart beating steady and strong. He explored carefully, tracing the lines of muscle, feeling the difference between his own soft body and Dante's hard strength. When his fingers brushed across Dante's nipple, the bigger man sucked in a breath. "Sensitive there?" Ethan asked, emboldened. "Very," Dante confirmed, his voice strained. "You're a quick study." Ethan experimented, touching and watching Dante's reactions, learning what made his breath catch, what made his muscles tense with pleasure. It was intoxicating, this power to affect someone so much larger and stronger than himself. Then Dante's hands came to Ethan's waist, thumbs hooking into the waistband of his underwear. "Last piece," he said. "Ready?" Ethan nodded, and Dante slowly, carefully pulled the fabric down and away. For a moment, Ethan stood completely exposed, fighting the urge to cover himself. He was hard, had been since that first kiss, his arousal evident and vulnerable. He wasn't particularly large, he knew that, and the comparison to what he'd seen of Dante made him feel inadequate. But Dante's eyes were warm with appreciation, not judgment. "Beautiful," he said again, and somehow Ethan believed him. "Don't compare yourself to me, Ethan. Every body is different, and yours is exactly right." Then Dante undressed himself, unbuttoning his jeans and pushing them down along with his underwear, and Ethan's eyes went wide. Dante was huge. There was no other word for it, thick and long and absolutely intimidating in size. Ethan felt his nervousness spike even as his arousal intensified. "I know," Dante said gently, seeing Ethan's expression. "I know it looks impossible, but Ethan, I promise you, we'll make it work. Your body is designed to accommodate this if we prepare properly. Do you trust me?" Ethan dragged his eyes up from Dante's impressive arousal to meet his gaze. "I trust you," he said, and meant it completely. "Good," Dante said, moving closer until their bodies were almost touching. "Then lie down on the bed. Let me show you how good this can feel." Ethan climbed onto the bed with shaking limbs, lying back against the pillows. Dante followed, his weight making the mattress dip, his size making Ethan feel small and protected all at once. "I'm going to touch you now," Dante said, positioning himself beside Ethan. "I'm going to learn your body, find what makes you feel good, and you're going to tell me everything you're feeling. Understand?" "Yes," Ethan breathed. Dante's hands began their exploration. Starting at Ethan's shoulders and working down with patient thoroughness, he touched and stroked and caressed, finding sensitive spots Ethan didn't know existed, behind his ears, the inside of his elbows, the soft skin of his inner thighs. Each touch sent sparks of pleasure through Ethan's nervous system, building sensation upon sensation until he was trembling and gasping. When Dante's hand finally wrapped around Ethan's arousal, Ethan nearly came apart from that alone. No one had ever touched him there except himself, and Dante's large hand felt completely different, felt overwhelming and perfect. "That's it," Dante encouraged, his hand moving with skilled rhythm. "Let yourself feel it. Don't hold back." Ethan couldn't have held back if he tried. His hips moved involuntarily, seeking more of that incredible sensation. Dante's other hand explored lower, finding sensitive places that made Ethan gasp and arch. "Have you ever touched yourself here?" Dante asked, his fingers circling but not entering. "No," Ethan admitted. "I was too afraid of what it might mean." "It means you're human," Dante said gently. "It means your body knows what brings pleasure. Let me show you." His finger pressed in slowly, carefully, and Ethan tensed at the foreign sensation. "Breathe," Dante instructed. "Your body will adjust. Trust it." Ethan forced himself to breathe deeply, and gradually the discomfort faded into something else. Something that wasn't quite pleasure but wasn't unpleasant either. Dante worked patiently, adding slick wetness from somewhere, making the glide easier. "How does that feel?" Dante asked. "Strange," Ethan admitted. "But not bad. Just different." "It'll get better," Dante promised. "Your body needs to learn this. We're teaching it that this can bring pleasure." He continued his patient exploration, his fingers working magic, while his other hand kept up a steady rhythm on Ethan's arousal. Soon Ethan was moving against both touches, chasing sensation he'd never experienced before. "Dante," he gasped, "I think I'm going to—" "Let go," Dante encouraged. "I want to see you come apart." And Ethan did, pleasure crashing through him in waves so intense he cried out, his body convulsing with the force of his first orgasm that wasn't by his own hand. Dante held him through it, murmuring praise and encouragement, drawing out every last tremor. When Ethan finally came back to himself, gasping and overwhelmed, Dante was watching him with such tenderness it made his chest ache. "How do you feel?" Dante asked softly. "Incredible," Ethan managed. "I never knew it could be like that." "That was just the beginning," Dante promised. "Your body has so much more to discover, but we're going to take our time. No rushing, no pushing past what you're ready for." Ethan looked down at where Dante still stood, fully aroused, clearly untouched. "What about you?" "Tonight was about you," Dante said. "About showing you that you deserve pleasure, that your body deserves to be worshipped. We'll get to me eventually. I'm patient." He gathered Ethan into his arms, and Ethan went willingly, pressing his face against Dante's broad chest, feeling safe and cherished in a way he'd never experienced. "Thank you," Ethan whispered. "Thank you for trusting me," Dante replied, pressing a kiss to his hair. They lay together as the sun set outside, and Ethan felt the final pieces of his old life falling away, making room for something new, something real, something undeniably his. They stayed like that for a long while, Ethan's body still trembling with aftershocks, Dante's strong arms wrapped around him like a fortress. Outside the window, the sky shifted from gold to purple to deep blue, and somewhere in the distance, Ethan heard the sound of neighborhood kids playing, life continuing its normal rhythm, while his entire world had transformed. "I should call my girlfriend," Ethan said quietly, the words feeling strange in his mouth now. "Break things off. It's not fair to her." "Not tonight," Dante said, his hand stroking slow patterns on Ethan's back. "Tonight you just feel. Tomorrow you can start making those changes, but tonight you don't owe anyone anything except yourself." "I've never done that before," Ethan admitted. "Put myself first. It feels selfish." "It's not selfish to be honest," Dante corrected gently. "It's not selfish to stop lying about who you are. That girl deserves someone who wants her with their whole heart, and you deserve to want who you want without shame." Ethan tilted his head up to look at Dante's face. In the gathering darkness, his features were softer, more open. "How did you figure it out? About yourself?" Dante smiled, a small, private smile. "I always knew, even as a kid. Grew up in a family that didn't make a big deal about it. My uncle brought his partner to every family gathering, and nobody cared. Made it easier for me to just be who I was, without all the guilt and hiding." "That sounds nice," Ethan said wistfully. "It was," Dante agreed. "But it also means I don't fully understand what you're going through. The fear, the hiding, the weight of other people's expectations. That takes real courage to work through, Ethan. Give yourself credit for that." "I don't feel very courageous," Ethan said. "I feel like I'm 23 and should have had this all figured out years ago." "You're exactly where you need to be," Dante assured him. "There's no timeline for this stuff. Some people know at 5, some at 15, some at 50. You're not behind. You're just on your own path." Ethan absorbed that, letting the words sink into the parts of him that had been so critical, so demanding of perfection. "Will you teach me?" he asked quietly. "About all of this? About what my body can do, what it can feel?" "If that's what you want," Dante said, But Ethan, you need to understand something. This isn't just about sex or exploration. What I'm feeling for you, it's not casual. I don't do casual well. So if we're gonna do this, I need to know you're open to something real. Ethan's heart hammered. What do you mean by real? I mean dating, Dante said bluntly. I mean seeing where this goes beyond just physical. I mean treating this like it matters, because to me, it does. You matter. I've never dated a man before, Ethan said, anxiety creeping in. I don't know how to do this. Same way you date anyone, Dante said with a slight smile. We spend time together. We talk. We learn each other. The only difference is we don't have to pretend we don't want to tear each other's clothes off. That startled a laugh out of Ethan. When you put it that way. So what do you say? Dante asked. Want to see if this scared architecture student and this old contractor can build something together? You're not old, Ethan protested. I'm 42, baby. That's nearly twice your age. I don't care about that, Ethan said firmly. And yes, I want to try this. I want to try us. Dante's smile was brilliant. Good. Then stay tonight. Sleep here with me. Let me hold you. And tomorrow we'll figure out the rest. Ethan nodded, burrowing closer into Dante's warmth. He'd never spent the night with anyone before, had never trusted anyone enough to be that vulnerable. But here, in Dante's arms, he felt safer than he'd ever felt in his carefully constructed life. Can I ask you something? Ethan said after a while. Anything. Earlier, when you were touching me, you seemed to know exactly what to do, how to make it feel good. Have you been with someone like me before? Someone inexperienced? Dante was quiet for a moment. I've been with a few men over the years, he said carefully. But no, never someone completely inexperienced. That's part of why I want to go slow with you. I don't want to overwhelm you or push you past what you're ready for. I appreciate that, Ethan said. But Dante, I also don't want you to treat me like I'm fragile. I'm nervous, yes, but I'm also curious and eager, and I want to experience everything with you. We'll get there, Dante promised. But trust me when I say that building anticipation, taking our time, that's going to make everything better when we finally get to that point. How much time? Ethan couldn't help asking. Dante chuckled, the sound rumbling through his chest. Eager, are we? You have no idea, Ethan admitted. I've been watching you for 3 months, wanting you, imagining this. Now that it's real, now that I know you want me too, it's hard to be patient. I do want you, Dante confirmed, his voice dropping lower. More than I've wanted anyone in a long time. But Ethan, when we do take that final step, when I'm finally inside you, I want you to be ready for it. I want your body relaxed and eager, not tense and afraid. And that takes preparation. How long does that preparation take? Ethan asked. Depends on the person, Dante said. Could be a few days, could be a couple weeks. We'll know when you're ready. A couple weeks felt like forever, but Ethan understood the wisdom in Dante's approach. Okay, he agreed. We'll go at whatever pace you think is right. Good boy, Dante murmured, and those 2 words sent a shiver down Ethan's spine. They talked late into the night, sharing stories and secrets and all the small details that people learn about each other when they're building something new. Ethan learned that Dante coached youth basketball on weekends, that he read philosophy for fun, that his favorite food was his mother's jerk chicken, and that he'd built this house with his own hands over the course of 2 years. Dante learned that Ethan played piano, that he'd wanted to be an architect since he was 8 years old, that he had a younger sister who he adored, and that his favorite place in the world was the Columbia Library at 3 in the morning when it was silent and perfect. Eventually, exhaustion claimed them both. Dante pulled a sheet over their naked bodies, and Ethan drifted off to sleep with his head on Dante's chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, feeling completely at peace for the first time in his memory. Ethan woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows, and the warm weight of Dante's arm draped across his waist. For a moment, he lay perfectly still, processing the reality of where he was and what had happened. He was in Dante Morrison's bed. He was naked. They'd touched each other in ways Ethan had only fantasized about. And most incredibly, Dante wanted him. Really wanted him, not just for one night but for something real. The panic he expected didn't come. Instead, he felt a strange sense of rightness, like pieces of himself that had never quite fit were finally clicking into place. Dante stirred behind him, pulling him closer. "Morning," he rumbled, his voice rough with sleep. "How are you feeling?" "Good," Ethan said, surprised to find it was true. "Really good, actually." "No regrets?" "None," Ethan said firmly, then hesitated. "Although I do need to deal with some things today. My girlfriend, my parents, eventually, the internship coordinator." "One thing at a time," Dante advised, pressing a kiss to his shoulder. "Start with the girlfriend. That's the most immediate. Everything else can wait until you're ready." They showered separately, Dante insisting that sharing would lead to activities that would make Ethan late for what he needed to do. Ethan borrowed clothes, Dante's t-shirt hanging loose on his smaller frame, the intimacy of wearing something that smelled like the man making his stomach flutter with happiness. Over breakfast, simple scrambled eggs and toast that Dante made with the same capable efficiency he brought to everything. They talked logistics. "I can't be your direct supervisor anymore," Dante said. "Not if we're dating. It's a conflict of interest." "I know," Ethan agreed. "I'll talk to the internship coordinator Monday. Request reassignment to a different site or a different supervisor." "There's another option," Dante offered carefully. "My company has an opening for a junior project manager. It's a real position, not an internship. You'd be working with multiple crews across different sites, not just shadowing one person. It would mean leaving the official internship program, but it might actually be better for your career." Ethan considered this. "Would I still get to see you?" Dante smiled. "Baby, if you take that position, you'd be coordinating with me daily. Just in a professional capacity during work hours." "I like the sound of that," Ethan said. "Can you send me the details?" "Already did," Dante said, showing him an email on his phone. "Forwarded it this morning." After breakfast, Ethan steeled himself for what came next. He drove to his girlfriend Sarah's apartment, his stomach churning with guilt and nerves. She deserved honesty, even if it was going to hurt. Sarah answered the door with a bright smile that made Ethan's chest ache with guilt. "Hey, I didn't expect to see you this morning. Come in." "Sarah, we need to talk," Ethan said. Staying in the doorway, her smile faded. "That's never good. Can we sit down?" They settled on her couch, and Ethan took a deep breath. "I need to break up with you," he said, forcing himself to be direct. "It's not fair to you, and I can't keep doing this." "Doing what?" Sarah asked, her voice small. "Is there someone else?" "Yes and no," Ethan said carefully. "There is someone, but Sarah, this isn't about them. This is about me finally being honest about who I am." "I don't understand." "I'm gay," Ethan said, the words feeling both terrifying and liberating. "I've known for a long time, but I was too scared to admit it. I've been lying to you, to myself, to everyone, and you deserve so much better than someone who can't love you the way you deserve." Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, she laughed. Not cruelly, but with something like relief. "I knew," she said. "What?" "Ethan, you've been holding me at arm's length for 2 years. You never wanted to go further than kissing. You'd tense up whenever I tried to initiate anything physical. I kept telling myself you were just traditional. But deep down, I knew something was off." "Why didn't you say anything?" Ethan asked, stunned. "Because I thought if I just waited, if I was patient enough, you'd eventually want me," Sarah admitted. "I thought I could make you love me, but I can't compete with who you actually are." "I'm so sorry," Ethan said. "You deserved honesty from the start." "Yeah, I did," Sarah agreed. "But I also wasn't being honest with myself. I knew you weren't into me, not really, and I stayed anyway because being with you looked good. Your family, your education, your future. I liked the idea of us more than the reality." "So we were both lying," Ethan said quietly. "Looks like it." Sarah stood, crossing to a shelf and pulling down a framed photo of them. "Can I ask who he is?" "The someone else?" "My supervisor at the construction site," Ethan admitted. "Dante." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "The really tall, really built black guy you mentioned a few times?" Ethan felt his face heat. "Yeah. Good for you," Sarah said, and she sounded like she meant it. "Go be happy, Ethan. Actually happy, not pretend happy. And next time, be honest from the start. I will, Ethan promised. And Sarah, you're going to find someone who wants you with their whole heart. I know it. I better, she said with a watery smile. Now get out of here. I have ice cream to eat and rom-coms to watch. Ethan hugged her goodbye, feeling the weight of 2 years of dishonesty finally lift from his shoulders. It hadn't been as terrible as he'd feared. Sarah deserved better than what he'd given her, but at least now they both had a chance at something real. He texted Dante as he walked to his car. Done. She took it better than I expected. The response was immediate. Proud of you. That took courage. Want to come back here? Yes, Ethan typed. But I should probably go home, change, think about everything. Understandable. Call me later? Definitely. Ethan spent the rest of Saturday in a daze, alternating between giddy happiness and creeping anxiety about what came next. He researched the job Dante had mentioned, and it was perfect. Exactly the kind of position that would set him up for a real career in construction management. The pay was substantially more than his internship stipend. The responsibilities were challenging but achievable. He applied that evening, crafting a cover letter that highlighted his architectural knowledge and his 3 months of hands-on construction experience. Whether he got it or not, at least he was taking action, moving forward instead of staying frozen in fear. Sunday morning, Dante called. Breakfast? I'd love that, Ethan said immediately. They met at a diner halfway between their apartments, and Ethan felt his heart skip when he saw Dante waiting outside, dressed casually in jeans and a fitted Henley that showed off his build. This was different from the construction site, different from the intense intimacy of Friday night. This was a date. Public and real and terrifying in the best way. Hey, Dante said, pulling him into a brief hug that Ethan wanted to last forever. Hey yourself, Ethan managed. Inside, they ordered massive breakfasts and talked about everything and nothing. Dante asked about the breakup, and Ethan shared the surprising twist of Sarah already knowing. Dante shared stories about his week, about a particularly difficult foundation pour that had gone perfectly despite everyone's doubts. It was easy, comfortable, exactly what Ethan had never had with Sarah or any of the girls he'd dated. They lingered over coffee refills, neither wanting the morning to end. I want to see you again, Dante said as they finally prepared to leave. As often as you'll let me. What about work? Ethan asked. The conflict of interest? Tomorrow you talk to the coordinator, get reassigned or apply for that position I mentioned. Until that's resolved, we keep things professional on site. But after hours? Dante's eyes darkened with promise. After hours, you're mine if you want to be. I want to be, Ethan said, the words coming easier each time. That afternoon, Ethan drafted an email to the internship coordinator, explaining that he'd developed a personal relationship with his supervisor and needed to be reassigned to maintain professional boundaries. He also formally applied for the junior project manager position, attaching his resume and cover letter. Both emails sent, he felt simultaneously relieved and terrified. He was really doing this. He was choosing himself, choosing honesty, choosing Dante. Monday morning, Ethan arrived at the construction site with his stomach in knots. The crew gave him curious looks, probably wondering why he looked like he'd been hit by a truck. Dante maintained perfect professionalism, treating him exactly as he always had, except for one moment when their eyes met, and Ethan saw the warmth there, the promise of later. By noon, Ethan had a response from the internship coordinator requesting a meeting. By 2, he was sitting in her office explaining the situation as vaguely as possible while still being honest. These things happen, she said, surprisingly understanding. You're both adults. You handled it appropriately by coming forward. I'll reassign you to the Riverside project starting next week. Actually, Ethan said, gathering his courage, I've applied for a full-time position with Morrison Construction. If I get it, I'd like to withdraw from the internship program. She raised an eyebrow. That's quite a leap. I know, Ethan said, but I've learned more in 3 months on site than I did in 4 years of school. This feels right. Well, if they offer you the position, you have my blessing to accept it. And Ethan? She smiled. Good luck, both professionally and personally. 3 days later, Ethan got a call from Morrison Construction's HR department. They wanted to interview him for the junior project manager position. The interview was scheduled for Friday, conducted by 3 people who weren't Dante, ensuring fairness. Ethan prepared obsessively, reviewing everything he'd learned, practicing answers to potential questions. Dante helped him prep, playing devil's advocate and asking tough questions, but refused to give him any inside information about what they might ask. "You need to earn this on your own merit," Dante insisted. "I won't undermine that." Friday afternoon, Ethan walked into the conference room at Morrison Construction's main office, wearing his best suit and carrying a portfolio of work he'd contributed to during his internship. The interview lasted 90 minutes, covering everything from technical knowledge to leadership philosophy to how he handled conflict. When it was over, they thanked him and said they'd be in touch. Ethan left feeling like he'd done well, but uncertain if well was enough. He texted Dante, "Interview done. I think it went okay. Meet me at my place. I want to hear everything." An hour later, Ethan was sitting in Dante's living room, recounting every question and answer while Dante listened intently. "Sounds like you nailed it," Dante said when he finished. "I hope so," Ethan said. "I really want this, Dante. Not just because of you, but because it feels right. This career path, this city, this life, it all feels right for the first time." "Come here," Dante said, pulling him close. Ethan went willingly, settling against Dante's side on the couch. They'd seen each other several times over the past week, stolen hours after work, where they talked and kissed, and gradually explored more of each other's bodies. Dante was patient, maddeningly so, always stopping before things went too far, insisting that Ethan's body needed more preparation before they could go all the way. "How's your body feeling?" Dante asked now, his hand sliding under Ethan's shirt to stroke bare skin. "Eager," Ethan admitted. "Frustrated. I want more." "More how?" Dante prompted. "More of everything," Ethan said. "More touching, more intimacy, more of you. I know you're being patient, but Dante, I'm ready for more than just fingers." Dante's hand stilled. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" "I want you inside me," Ethan said bluntly, his face heating but his voice steady. "Properly, completely. I want to know what that feels like." "Ethan," Dante said carefully, "it's only been a week. Your body has been ready for days," Ethan interrupted. "You've prepared me well. I can take more now without discomfort. I know my body, and I know I'm ready." Dante studied his face for a long moment. "You're sure? Absolutely sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything," Ethan said. "Please, Dante, I need this. I need you." Something shifted in Dante's expression, heat and possession mixing with the tenderness that was always there. "All right," he said, his voice dropping to that deep register that made Ethan's stomach flutter. "But we do this my way. Slow, careful, with you in control of the pace. However you want," Ethan agreed breathlessly. Dante stood, pulling Ethan up with him. "Then let's go upstairs. Because baby, if we're doing this, I want you in my bed where I can spread you out and take my time." Ethan's knees went weak at the promise in those words. He followed Dante upstairs, his heart pounding with anticipation and nerves and desperate want. In the bedroom, Dante undressed him slowly, kissing each new patch of revealed skin. When Ethan was naked and trembling, Dante laid him out on the bed and just looked at him. "You're so beautiful," Dante said. "I could look at you forever." "I'd rather you touch me," Ethan said, emboldened by desire. Dante smiled. "Patience. I'm going to make this so good for you. But that means taking our time." He undressed himself, and Ethan watched hungrily as each layer came off, revealing the powerful body underneath. When Dante was finally naked, when Ethan could see the thick, hard length of him standing proud from his body, anticipation curled hot and insistent in his belly. "I'm going to prepare you first," Dante said, joining him on the bed. "Make sure you're ready." His hands and mouth worked magic, kissing and touching and stroking until Ethan was gasping and writhing against the sheets. When Dante's fingers pressed inside, slick and careful, Ethan welcomed the intrusion, his body opening for those patient touches. "That's it," Dante encouraged, working him slowly. "Your body remembers. It knows what's coming. He added more fingers, stretching carefully, and Ethan felt the burn of it, the edge of too much that transformed into something incredible as his body adjusted. "Ready?" Dante asked, his voice strained with his own need. "Please," Ethan begged, "I need you." Dante positioned himself, the broad head of his arousal pressing against Ethan's entrance. "Breathe," he instructed. "Push back against me. Let your body accept me." Ethan did as instructed, forcing himself to relax as Dante pressed forward. The stretch was intense, burning, bordering on too much. He felt impossibly full, and Dante wasn't even halfway in yet. "Too much?" Dante asked, holding perfectly still. "No," Ethan gasped. "Keep going. I want all of you." Dante pressed forward incrementally, giving Ethan time to adjust to each new inch. The fullness was overwhelming, stretching him in ways he'd never imagined. But it wasn't painful. It was intense and consuming, and exactly what he needed. Finally, after what felt like forever, Dante was fully seated, his hips pressed against Ethan's body. "Oh God," Ethan breathed. "You're so deep." "How does it feel?" Dante asked, his voice strained with the effort of holding still. "Full," Ethan said. "Impossibly full, but good. So good." "I'm going to move now," Dante warned. "Tell me if it's too much." He pulled back slowly, then pressed forward again, and Ethan's entire world narrowed to that sensation. The drag of Dante's thick length against his inner walls. The pressure, the fullness, the rightness of being connected like this. "More," Ethan gasped. "Please, more." Dante established a rhythm, slow and deep, each thrust carefully controlled. His hand wrapped around Ethan's arousal, stroking in time with his movements, and Ethan felt pleasure building from both sensations, spiraling higher and higher. "You're taking me so well," Dante praised, his voice rough. "So perfect, baby. Made for this. Made for me." The words pushed Ethan closer to the edge. He'd never felt anything like this combination of physical pleasure and emotional connection. This was nothing like he'd imagined. Nothing his limited fantasies had prepared him for. This was transcendent. "Dante," he gasped. "I'm close." "Let go," Dante encouraged, his hand moving faster. "Come for me. I want to feel you." Ethan shattered, pleasure crashing through him in waves so intense he saw stars. His body clenched around Dante, and he heard the bigger man groan, felt him thrust deeper as he found his own release. They stayed connected for a long moment, both breathing hard, both overwhelmed by the intensity of what they'd shared. Then, Dante carefully withdrew, and Ethan whimpered at the loss. "I know," Dante soothed, gathering him close. "I know, baby." They lay tangled together, Ethan's body pleasantly sore, his mind blown by what they'd just done. He'd crossed a threshold he could never uncross, and he felt no regret, only satisfaction and joy and deep, abiding love for the man holding him. "Thank you," Ethan whispered. "For what?" Dante asked. "For being patient with me, for making my first time everything it should be, for seeing me when I couldn't see myself." Dante kissed his forehead. "Thank you for trusting me with something so precious." "I know that wasn't easy." They dozed for a while, wrapped in each other's warmth. When Ethan woke, it was dark outside, and Dante was watching him with soft eyes. "Hey," Dante said quietly. "Hey," Ethan replied. "How long was I asleep?" "About an hour. How are you feeling?" Ethan took inventory. His body ached in new ways, but it was a good ache, a reminder of what they'd shared. "Sore," he admitted, "but happy. Really, really happy." "Good," Dante said, "because I have a question for you, and I want you to think carefully before answering." "Okay," Ethan said, suddenly nervous. "Move in with me." Ethan's eyes went wide. "What?" "I know it's fast," Dante said quickly. "I know we've only been together officially for a week, but Ethan, you're here more than you're at your own place. Every night this week, you've ended up in my bed, and I like having you here. I like waking up with you. I want this to be your home, not just mine." Ethan's mind raced. This was crazy. They barely knew each other. A week ago, he'd been closeted and miserable and lying to everyone, including himself. Now Dante was asking him to move in, to make this real and permanent and public. "What about the job?" Ethan asked. "If I don't get it, if I have to work somewhere else?" I want you here regardless, Dante interrupted. This isn't about convenience or work. This is about us, about building something real together. If you get the job, great. If you don't, we'll figure it out. But either way, I want you here with me. Ethan looked around the bedroom that had become so familiar over the past week. He thought about his cramped studio apartment across town, the place that had never felt like home. He thought about waking up alone versus waking up in Dante's arms. Yes, he said, surprising himself with how easy the decision was. Yes, I want to move in with you. Dante's smile was brilliant. Yeah? Yeah, Ethan confirmed. You're right. I'm here more than I'm there anyway. And I don't want to spend nights apart. I want this, want us, want everything we're building. They sealed the decision with a kiss that quickly turned heated. This time, when Dante reached for him, Ethan was ready, his body eager despite the newness of everything. Again? Dante asked, amused. Again, Ethan confirmed. I have a lot of lost time to make up for. Then let me help you with that, Dante murmured, and proceeded to show Ethan all the ways pleasure could be found. Monday morning, Ethan got the call. He'd been offered the junior project manager position at Morrison Construction. The salary was more than he'd hoped for. The benefits were excellent, and the start date was in 2 weeks, giving him time to wrap up his internship commitments and move his belongings to Dante's house. He accepted on the spot, then immediately called Dante. I got it, he said when Dante answered. I got the job. I knew you would, Dante said, pride evident in his voice. Congratulations, baby. You earned this. We should celebrate, Ethan said. Already planned, Dante replied. I'm taking you out tonight. Nice restaurant, the whole thing. We're celebrating you and this new chapter properly. That evening, dressed in his best suit, Ethan met Dante at an upscale Italian restaurant downtown. They ate slowly, talking about the future, about what this job would mean, about how they'd navigate working for the same company while dating. We'll be professional during work hours, Dante said. No special treatment, no obvious favoritism. You'll earn respect through your work, not through our relationship. I wouldn't want it any other way, Ethan agreed. But after hours, Dante continued, his eyes darkening. You're all mine. I like the sound of that, Ethan said, heat pooling low in his belly despite being in public. Over the next 2 weeks, Ethan's life transformed completely. He moved his belongings into Dante's house, his clothes filling half the closet, his books joining Dante's on the shelves. He officially came out to his parents, a difficult phone call that ended with his mother crying and his father saying he needed time to process. It hurt, but Ethan felt lighter afterward, no longer carrying the weight of that secret. He came out to his younger sister, who hugged him fiercely and said she'd always known and loved him regardless. He updated his social media, changing his relationship status and posting a photo of him and Dante together. Some people were supportive, others weren't. He deleted the ones who weren't without hesitation. His first day as junior project manager, Ethan showed up early, nervous and excited. He'd be working across multiple sites, coordinating with different crews, and yes, working with Dante regularly, but in a professional capacity. Dante was on site when Ethan arrived, and their eyes met across the construction yard. Dante gave him a subtle nod, professional and appropriate. But Ethan saw the warmth there, the pride, the promise of later. The work was challenging, exactly what Ethan needed. He coordinated schedules, managed resources, solved problems, and earned respect through competence rather than connections. The crew that knew about his relationship with Dante watched carefully at first, waiting to see if he'd abuse that connection. When he didn't, when he worked just as hard as everyone else and never asked for special treatment, they accepted him. 3 months into the job, Ethan was managing 4 different project sites and earning praise from upper management. His relationship with Dante had deepened into something solid and real, built on mutual respect and genuine affection. They'd navigated the challenges of living together, learned each other's quirks and habits, and fallen more deeply in love with each passing day. 6 months in, Dante took him to a family gathering, introducing him to the brothers and sisters and nieces and nephews Ethan had seen in photos. They welcomed him warmly, teasing Dante mercilessly about finally settling down and making Ethan feel like he belonged. 1 year after that first night in Dante's bed, they sat on their back porch watching the sunset. Ethan tucked against Dante's side. "You know what today is?" Dante asked. "Anniversary of the day I got brave," Ethan said. "Anniversary of the day you changed my life," Dante corrected. "Best day of my life, when you walked into that construction trailer and told me what you wanted. I was terrified," Ethan admitted. "You were brave," Dante said. "You took a risk on something that seemed impossible. And look at us now." Ethan looked around their home, the life they'd built together. He thought about the job he loved, the man he loved more, the future stretching out before them, full of possibility. "I love you," he said simply. "I love you too," Dante replied. "My beautiful, brave boy who took a chance on an old contractor." "You're not old," Ethan protested, the old argument making them both smile. "Whatever you say, baby." Dante pulled him closer. "Whatever you say." They sat in comfortable silence as the sky turned gold and purple. Two men who'd found each other despite impossible odds, who'd built something real and lasting from a moment of courage. Ethan had spent 23 years hiding, afraid of who he was and what he wanted. Then he'd met Dante Morrison, a man who'd seen through every wall he'd built, and everything had changed. He'd learned what desire felt like, what love felt like, what it meant to be seen and wanted and cherished exactly as he was. He'd learned that sometimes the scariest thing you can do is tell the truth, and sometimes the truth sets you free. 2 years after that first night, Dante proposed on the construction site where they'd first admitted their feelings, getting down on one knee in the same trailer where Ethan had confessed his desire. "Marry me," Dante said simply. "Make this permanent. Build a life with me officially." "Yes," Ethan said without hesitation. 1,000 times yes. They married 6 months later, surrounded by family and friends and the crew members who'd become like family. Ethan's parents came, his father still awkward but trying, his mother tearful but accepting. His sister was his best woman, standing beside him as he pledged his life to the man who'd changed everything. In his vows, Ethan talked about courage, about the night he'd taken a risk on something impossible and found everything he'd been missing. About how Dante had taught him that love wasn't something to fear, but something to embrace. In his vows, Dante talked about patience, about seeing something precious and being willing to wait, to nurture, to help it grow. About how Ethan had reminded him that the best things in life are worth fighting for. They honeymooned in Costa Rica, spending 2 weeks exploring and relaxing and making love in a beachside bungalow where the only sounds were waves and birdsong and their shared pleasure. When they returned, they settled into married life with the same ease they'd settled into everything else. Ethan continued excelling at his job, eventually earning a promotion to senior project manager. Dante opened his own contracting firm, Morrison & Associates, with Ethan as his business partner and second in command. They bought a bigger house, with room for the family they talked about starting someday. They built a life that was messy and real, and absolutely theirs. 5 years after that first night, they sat on their new back porch, watching their nieces and nephews play in the yard during a family barbecue. "Think we're ready?" Dante asked, gesturing to the chaos of children. "For our own?" Ethan asked. "Yeah, I think we are." "Good," Dante said. "Because I've already contacted the adoption agency." Ethan turned to stare at him. "You have?" "We've been talking about this for 2 years, Dante said. "I figured it was time to stop talking and start doing." Ethan kissed him, long and deep, not caring that they had an audience. "I love you so much." "Love you too, baby. Always." A year later, they brought home their son, a 3-year-old named Marcus who'd been through the foster system and needed a family who would love him unconditionally. Ethan and Dante gave him exactly that, raising him with the same patient care they'd shown each other. 2 years after that, they adopted a daughter, 5-year-old Sophia, who'd been waiting for a permanent home. Their family was complete, loud and chaotic, and absolutely perfect. On their 10th wedding anniversary, sitting in their backyard while their kids played with cousins, Ethan reflected on the journey that had brought him here. "What are you thinking?" Dante asked, noticing his contemplative expression. "About how different my life is from what I imagined," Ethan said. 10 years ago, I was closeted and miserable, planning to marry a woman I didn't love and live a lie forever. And now, Dante prompted. Now I have everything, Ethan said simply. A husband I adore, kids I'd die for, a career I love, a family that accepts us. I have a life that's real and messy and absolutely mine. No regrets? Dante asked. Only that I didn't find my courage sooner, Ethan said. But no regrets about us, about this life, about anything we've built together. Dante pulled him close, kissing him with the same passion as that first kiss in his kitchen all those years ago. Here's to 10 more years, he said. And 10 after that. And every year we're lucky enough to have together. Forever, Ethan agreed. I choose you forever. And he meant it, every word. Because Ethan Clark had learned that the bravest thing you can do is be honest about who you are and what you want. That love doesn't follow a script or a timeline. That sometimes the person who changes your entire world is the one you never expected. He'd been a scared, closeted 23-year-old virgin when he met Dante Morrison. Now he was a confident, out, happily married father of 2, with a successful career and a life he loved. All because one day, he'd found the courage to say what he wanted, to reach for something that seemed impossible, to trust a man who'd promised to make it fit, to make it work, to make him feel everything he'd been missing. Dante had kept every promise. And Ethan had discovered that when you're brave enough to be yourself, when you're honest about your desires and needs, the universe has a way of giving you exactly what you need. He'd needed Dante, and Dante had needed him. Together, they'd built something beautiful from that first moment of courage, that first whispered confession of desire. They'd proven that love knows no boundaries, that families come in all forms, that happiness isn't about following someone else's script, but writing your own story. And what a story it was, Ethan thought, watching his husband play with their children, surrounded by family and laughter and love. What an absolutely perfect story.